The chance meeting that changed everything. The rain fell in heavy sheets that October evening, turning the downtown streets into rivers of reflected neon lights and forgotten dreams. Meera Patel wiped down the counter at Joe's Diner for the last time that shift. Her feet aching in shoes worn thin from 1,000 shifts just like this one. The clock above the kitchen door showed 11:47 p.m. and she still had 40 minutes before she could leave. Not that leaving meant going home to rest. No, after this she would head to her second job at the hospital laundry facility, washing and folding linens until dawn broke pale and exhausted across the sky. At 26 years old, Meera had learned that life was not about dreams or aspirations or the kind of hope that people talked about in movies. Life was about survival. It was about the money she sent to her mother back in India, about the medical bills that never seemed to end, about making sure her younger brother could stay in college. It was about choosing between eating lunch and putting gas in her car. It was about the blistering on her heels that she ignored because she had no time to feel pain. Her manager, Frank, called out from the back kitchen where he was wiping down the grill. "Good work tonight, Meera. You coming in tomorrow?" "Same time," she replied, managing a tired smile. Frank was kind as far as managers went. He never made her feel small, never blamed her when customers were rude. He understood that she was doing her best with the little she had. Meera finished counting her tips, her heart sinking as she stared at the crumpled bills and coins in her palm. $12.30. After taxes and the cut that went to the restaurant, she would take home maybe $9. She had already spent her paycheck on her mother's heart medication, the prescription that had become as essential as breathing. Her last money, $47, sat in her bank account like a fragile emergency. She could not touch it. She would not touch it. She pulled on her thin cardigan, the one she had owned for 5 years and which had holes in the pockets she had stopped trying to repair. The October wind outside was bitter, carrying the smell of wet asphalt and distant car exhaust. Meera hunched her shoulders against it and began walking toward the metro station 3 blocks away. The street was empty except for the occasional car that swooshed past, sending up sprays of water from the puddles. Meera's mind was already moving toward her next task, toward the hospital, toward the endless repetition that made up her days. She did not notice the sleek black car that screeched to a halt just ahead of her, or the young man who stumbled out of it. His expensive clothes torn and muddied. What made her stop was the sound of his gasp, followed by a thump as he collapsed against the brick wall of a closed storefront. Meera's first instinct was to keep walking. She was tired. She was poor. She had learned long ago that getting involved in other people's problems was a luxury she could not afford. But something in her could not do it. Something in her heart, bruised and worn though it was, could not ignore another human being in pain. She approached carefully, her eyes scanning him for threats. He was young, maybe early 20s, with dark hair and the kind of clothes that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His face was pale, almost gray, and sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cold. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice soft with genuine concern. His eyes opened, struggling to focus on her. I need to get to the hospital. My appendix. It feels like..." He gasped, gripping his side. "I think something is seriously wrong." Meera knelt beside him, her nursing instincts kicking in from her months of working at the hospital. She could see the signs of acute pain, the distended abdomen, the shallow breathing. He needed help now. "Where is your phone?" she asked. "Left it?" "In the car. The car is back there." He pointed vaguely back toward the direction he had come from. "My father..." He was angry. "We argued. I left the dinner party and I just drove. I did not realize I was so sick until..." Meera understood. He was alone. No phone. No way to call for help. And she had $47 to her name. Without thinking, without letting herself think about what she was about to do, Meera pulled out her wallet. Her hands trembled as she withdrew her last $2 bills, the money she had been saving to buy rice and lentils for the coming week. "Come on," she said, helping him to his feet. "We are going to get you to the hospital right now." The $2 bills went into a taxi fare, getting them to Mercy General Hospital 6 blocks away. By the time they arrived, the young man was semi-conscious, and Meera was holding his head in her lap, whispering words of reassurance, though she herself was terrified. The hospital doors burst open before them, and suddenly there were nurses and doctors, and the young man was being rushed away on a gurney. Mira stood in the bright fluorescent lobby, shaking, realizing that she had just given her last money to save a stranger. A nurse approached her. "Are you family?" "No," Mira said. "Just someone who found him." "Well, you did good, honey. He came in acute appendicitis. Another hour and it could have been peritonitis. You probably saved his life." Mira nodded numbly, walking back out into the cold night. She was now officially broke. Not just poor, which she had always been, but actually completely, utterly broke. She looked at her watch. She was now 15 minutes late for her hospital job. What she did not know was that the young man she had saved was Lucas Sterling, heir to Sterling Technologies, one of the largest companies in the country, and that his father, Victor Sterling, had cameras installed throughout the hospital for security purposes, and that someone, watching the footage, would soon make sure that Victor Sterling knew exactly who had saved his son's life. What Mira did not know was that this night, this single act of selfless kindness with her last $2 would shatter the carefully constructed walls around her own small, struggling life and invite her into a world she never imagined existed. But as she walked through the rain toward her second job, all she knew was that she had done the right thing, and that somehow that would have to be enough. When love breaks every rule. When Mira arrived at the hospital for her shift, running 23 minutes late, she expected the usual lecture from her supervisor, Margaret, who did not tolerate tardiness. Instead, she found Margaret waiting for her with an expression that Mira could not quite read. "Come with me," Margaret said, her voice oddly gentle. Mira's heart sank. Had she been fired? She ran through her mind, trying to think of what she had done wrong, but came up blank. She had always been reliable, always worked hard, always kept her head down. Margaret led her to an administrative office that Mira had only seen from the outside. Behind the desk sat an older man in an expensive suit, and next to him stood a young man in fresh pajamas and a hospital gown. It was the boy she had saved. "Mira Patel," the older man said, standing up. His voice carried the weight of authority. "I am Victor Sterling, father of Lucas. I wanted to thank you personally for what you did last night. The hospital showed me the security footage. You gave Lucas your last money for a taxi fare. You stayed with him. You probably saved his life." Mira felt her face flush with embarrassment. She had not done it for recognition. She had done it because it was right. "I was just in the right place," she said quietly. "No," Lucas said from his bed, his voice still weak but filled with emotion. "You were kind. You were a stranger, and you gave everything you had. Who does that?" Over the next few weeks, something unexpected began to happen. Victor Sterling, moved by Mira's sacrifice and recognizing something rare in her character, began reaching out to her. He would call her at home, offering to help with her mother's medical bills. At first, Mira refused. She had too much pride, too much fear of obligation. But Victor was persistent, kind, and he had something that Mira did not: the ability to help without judgment. Slowly, her life began to change. Victor hired her as a personal assistant, a job that paid 3 times what she made at the diner and hospital combined. She could pay her mother's bills. She could send her brother more money for school. She could eat lunch if she wanted to. But the greatest change came from Lucas. Lucas recovered slowly. His appendix had been successfully removed, and the doctor said he would make a full recovery. But something in him had shifted during that surgery. Lying in the hospital bed, facing his own mortality, he had time to think about the beautiful woman who had knelt beside him in the rain, who had given her last money to save him. During his recovery, he asked his father to help him find her. Victor, understanding the stirring of something genuine in his son, facilitated their meetings. Mira would come to the Sterling mansion to help with tasks, and Lucas would find excuses to be there, to talk to her, to learn about her life. Their conversations began tentatively. Lucas asked her about growing up in India, about what had driven her family to America, about her dreams. Mira spoke carefully at first, wary of the wealth and power that surrounded them like an invisible wall. But Lucas had a way of making her feel like her words mattered, like her life, so different from his, was valuable and beautiful in its own way. Weeks turned into months. Lucas returned to his father's company, though he seemed less interested in corporate strategy and more interested in being wherever Mira was. He would visit the coffee shop where she now worked part-time, reading a book, not wanting to pressure her but simply wanting to be near her. He would text her observations about his day, wanting her reaction, her thoughts, her presence in his mind. His mother, Margaret Sterling, who was not the same Margaret as Mira's supervisor, noticed immediately. She called Lucas into her study one afternoon when his father was away. "You are falling for that girl," Margaret said, not a question but a statement. "Yes," Lucas said, seeing no point in denying it. "Lucas, you cannot be serious. Do you understand what people will say? Your business associates will question your judgment. Your social circle will ostracize you both. This is not a suitable match." "Mother," Lucas said quietly, "she saved my life. She gave her last money to save a stranger. She works 2 jobs to support her family across the world. She is the most exceptional person I have ever met. I do not care what people say." Margaret's face hardened. "If you pursue this, you will face consequences. Your father may understand, but the board of directors will not. Your inheritance, your position, everything we have built for you." "I do not want it," Lucas interrupted. "Not if it means I cannot be with her." The day Lucas told Mira he loved her came on a rain-soaked evening, exactly 6 months after she had saved his life on those same streets. They were walking through a park, and he stopped her beneath an old oak tree, its branches bare in the approaching winter. "I love you," he said simply. "Not because you saved me, though you did. Not because of fate or obligation or any of the things that make sense to other people. I love you because you are kind when life has given you no reason to be. You are strong when everything in the world has tried to break you. You are you, Mira Patel, and I cannot imagine my life without you in it." Mira felt tears streaming down her face. She had never believed in fairy tales, never allowed herself to hope for something like this. She had been taught that love was something for other people, people with money and time and the luxury of emotions. "I love you too," she whispered. "I am terrified, but I love you." Their love story would face opposition. Margaret Sterling would eventually come around, won over by Mira's genuine character and her son's unwavering commitment. The board of directors would initially protest until Lucas threatened to leave and start his own company. Society would gossip and speculate, as it always does when boundaries are broken. But in the end, what would matter most was this: that 2 people from completely different worlds had found each other in the rain, had recognized something essential in one another, and had chosen love over everything else. That a poor waitress with her last $2 had changed not just a rich man's son, but the entire trajectory of her own beautiful, unexpected life. And somewhere in the city, other people would hear their story and begin to believe that miracles were real, that kindness mattered. That sometimes the greatest treasures come wrapped not in gold, but in the simple human choice to see someone in pain and help anyway, no matter what it costs.